All right, good afternoon, boys and girls. Ken Smith, you know where from. So this is the Bass Cat Lynx video number 3. So if you haven't seen the first 2 videos, I spent some time in the boat, in a garage in the rain, going through all the features of the boat, and then we spent some time on the water in the boat with Phil Addison, Bass Cat Boats Pro. This is, I believe, either the 14th or 15th boat we reviewed. This will be, gosh, there's a whole bunch of videos out there, about video 26 or 27. And we're going to do this just like we've done the rest of them. So our first boat that we reviewed, if you remember, was the Bass Cat Hybrid boat. I told you back then, I knew that was not the boat for me once I got in the boat, but I was impressed with Bass Cat overall. And since Bass Cat was my guinea pig, I really wanted to come back and do Bass Cat as one of my very last boats. So in review of all the boats we reviewed, we've had a pretty big spectrum of scoring on boats. You can see the grid right there of kind of where the boats have scored. We've got 2 boats we haven't finished the scoring yet, the Vexus, which we hope to finish very soon, and the Falcon, which I've got the raw footage to get that done, so I'll have that up for you guys next week, the Falcon F215, which I went and looked at the 21E as well. So let's jump into the scoring. As always, you guys know the scoring if you've been following my series. And you know, I believe the highest scoring boats so far have been a Caymas and a Phoenix. Both scored 81 as I recall from that grid. So let's jump into this boat. First, let's talk about fishability. I love where the trim switches are. Hollis is in the other room, sorry guys. I love where the trim switches are over on the left. They're really easy to access and I can do them with my foot. As I've talked about before, that's a big deal to me. If I get a fish on and I got to go over inside some grass, inside some brush, I want to be able to lift my motor without bending down and losing contact with that fish. So I can do it with my foot. It's got a very clean front deck with the trolling motor down. It's got really good front deck width. Remember, we're measuring it at the second seat hole or the back seat hole, or if there's only one seat hole, wherever that seat hole is on the front deck. 68 inches is actually a little bit bigger than what I'm fishing out of now, which is that Ranger Z521C. The boat has very good stability. It's a really wide boat. I know that's not what you normally hear when you hear Bass Cat. Most of their boats are a little narrower to a lot narrower in beam. This boat's a big wide beam. I'll show you the stats in a minute, or the stats were in the grid a second ago. It's a big wide beam boat. It's a very stable boat, as you saw from the tippy test. I like the gunnel height. It's not too high, it's not too low. And I also like, I would never fish in this boat with that foot pedal in the forward position. I don't like that. But they allow you to back it up, and I like options for guys. Some guys love being, Phil talked about that. He loved being all the way forward in that boat for roll cast and for flipping stuff. I get that. I just don't like it. I want a little more room backed up in that boat. So the negatives on this boat, the negatives. Okay, so the negatives on this boat from a fishability standpoint, and it's a negative and it's not a negative. It has a very different front deck layout. There's some weird angles. There's some weird angles on the back decks as well. The rod box is down the middle, which the more I've thought about it, I actually like. And Phil made a great point, especially for guys who want to run dual consoles, which I've historically run dual consoles. In a dual console, my middle box is where the vast majority of my tackle is. So if I sit there, I can't get into that box. So I have to sit on my step, get whatever I want on that box, close that box, get back up there and rig my tackle. His point was he keeps his tackle either side of that. So once his rod's out, he can sit on the rod box and access his tackle on either side. So I kind of like that. And there's something else I like. So I now have 2 9-foot cranking rods. Now they both collapse, but they're both super long rods even when they telescope down. And even on some of my longer rods, some of my 711s, I can't get them in the bottom of my Ranger rod box, and I can't get them in the side. There's only a couple of holes they'll fit in. Well, I checked. In that center compartment, it's easier to get those super long rods in that compartment. So kind of grown to like that a little bit. And also, you see those weird lines on the front. Well, they did those weird lines so that you could lay your rods down and open those boxes without pushing those rods when you open those outside boxes. So once Phil kind of explained to me the thought process in that, I kind of liked it. Now, I will note on the front side box and a little bit on the back side box, starboard side, those boxes are a little bit shallower than what I'm used to. Not a big deal because they also give me storage under the seat. But just note, this boat is not designed, which none of them are, but it's not designed for you to put a bunch of weight in the front end. If you're going to carry as much crap as I carry, I'm going to have to move some of it to the back, and I probably need to rethink a little bit about how much crap I'm carrying around. But the biggest box on this boat is in fact the rod box. So that eats up some of your storage. Not a lot, but it eats up a little bit of your storage. And they've also done some cool stuff. If you go back to video 2, they've given you storage in the box lids. There's some compartments where you can slide, I think they're those 3600 boxes, in and have boxes up out of the way, which I thought was a pretty good idea. It's space that we don't use typically other than the Phoenix uses for your bait hangers. So I thought that was a pretty good idea done inside there. The one of the bigger knocks I had on that boat is on the starboard bow, or on the front where the trolling motor is not. It's a very weird little cubby hole up there, and there's spots to put marker buoys up there, and frankly I don't use, since the invent of spot lock, I really don't use marker buoys almost ever. I will use them on occasion brush pile fishing, to drop them on a brush pile, but for me, so one of the things I was concerned about was dual mounting graphs, and I've gotten a ton of pictures from guys, as we talked about in video 2, that there are options for that, but I just feel, looking at that space, that that needs to be redesigned. That feels like a pretty old design up there, so I would like to see that redesigned in more of a solid space where you can mount graphs up there. And also maybe make accessing the boat from outside the boat to the front a little bit easier. Because if you double stack those graphs, it gets pretty snug trying to get in the boat. And you heard Phil say he actually comes in on the port side of the trolling motor, so on the other side than what most of us would, because of the way they canted that trolling motor to the side. Which I like that, by the way, because it gives me some space to lay rods on the other side. My friend Clay had a Gambler, and Gambler actually made the trolling motor fold up over the foot pedal. The more I've thought about this, I don't know why everybody doesn't do that. It actually gives you more space on that front deck. It would screw up how a lot of boats now are double stacking their graphs on the trolling motor pedal, but I kind of like that idea, and it doesn't matter, but Bass Cat's brought that more to the center to give you storage space and step-in space on the port side of the boat. One other thing that was a little bit weird to me is it is a very big step from the floorboard up onto the front deck. It's got that one little triangular box you can step on. What it does tell you is you sit way down low in that boat, which I like. I like being, now I don't like sitting on my butt, but I like sitting down behind the graph. So let me say that another way. I don't like my feet being straight out in front of me. I like my feet where I can stand up, which you hear Phil talk about. But you get that in this boat, but it is a big step onto the front deck, which is not a big deal, but a little bit of a big deal for us old guys. Another thing that I definitely would want to see changed in this boat was I laughed at myself. This originally said co-angler rod butt BUTT holes too small. I just could not put that in writing, but where your rod butts go, those holes are too small. If you have the buffers like come on, or the little round things that come on most of the bottoms of my loose rods. So that's something that I don't think they've thought through, that needs to be improved. I really like the slots, like the Blazer guys were talking about, they do. Even the slots in my Ranger are better than what are in this boat. So hopefully somebody at Bass Cat will think about that. It would be a really simple redesign because it's actually just an insert. So I went back and I actually looked at the Puma to see what I scored it in Fishability, because I set the bar with that boat and how I graded everything else. And interestingly, I scored that boat a 15, and most of that was because it was a little more tippy, because it's sort of that Champion 201 hull, and also that front deck was more narrow. I scored this boat a 16, And it easily could have scored a 17 here to get it to excellent. But I think a lot of us are going to look, I don't think, I know a lot of guys look at that front deck and kind of scratch their head on those weird angles. Maybe I was a little bit unfair here, only scoring this boat a 16, but like everything, it's not what I'm used to, and I'm looking for my next boat, so I scored it a 16, which is still good, right on the edge of excellent from a fishability standpoint. All right, fit and finish. And again, I probably hurt them a little bit here. Well, I'll talk about that, or not hurt, but punish them. So as I've gone through these boats, I gotta say, I think Bass Cat maybe has the best looking glass and the best grade of carpet of any boat I've looked at. I'm sure some are really close, but it just seems to be a superiorly built boat. It's got a padded front deck. This was part of why I wanted to circle back and drive another Bass Cat, because that first boat, that Puma Hybrid, even though I didn't like that boat, it had that super solid feel. Now, I've not gotten into the build process, and several guys have talked to me about, oh, this is how a Ranger's built, or a Vexus is built, or whatever else is built. I've not gotten into that, because every time I've talked to a manufacturer or a manufacturer's rep, they've tried to explain to me why they make their boat so much better than everybody else. And the truth is, that can't be true, right? But I know what I feel when I drive these boats, and I've driven enough boats in the past and over the last 4 or 5 months to know what I'm feeling, and this boat really feels good. I also talked about it's some of my favorite seats in the Puma boat and in this boat as well. It's the other seats that I really liked in this process were the Phoenix seats. I like the shape of the of the Blazer seats, but remember I talked about there wasn't quite enough padding in the tail end, which I'm being told they were fixing. And I like the Skeeter seats, which were a whole different seat, but kind of more of a big guy seat. But these are very sports car feeling seats, and I really like them. There's good driver and passenger leg room. It's going to be one of the knocks on the Falcon. It seemed a little bit crowded in there. This boat, now I caught a lot of crap about this on the other boat, but this boat has a bigger live well. This boat has a great big live well. It's triangular and it's very deep. And one of the things I like about it, as I've thought about this, because of that triangle and because of the depth, they're putting the weight of that live well dead in the center of the boat, or as in the center of the boat as they possibly can. And to me, that seems like it would help performance and rough water ride as well. Now, if you think back to the Vexus, one of the things they talk about was baffling the gas tanks to keep that gas from sloshing around. Well, deep, narrow live wells will have that same effect, where you're not getting the water sloshing around as much. And if that has an impact on ride, which I'm not saying it does or it doesn't, but if it does, it should help this boat's ride. The live well's got an oxygenator system in it and spray bars, which we talked about, but I had very bad audio. But one of the things Phil talked about is there's actually a way to backwash in this boat those spray bars, because they get scales and everything else in them. And I wish I had that audio, but I don't. But that's something cool about this boat. This boat, and this is why I look at my score on fit and finish, and I think I've misclassified some stuff, but I got to kind of stick with my scoring I've been doing. This is the only boat manufacturer that all 6 of the fiberglass shops I talked to named as one of the best built. It's the only one. All 6 of those guys listed it 1, 2, or 3, and it was the most listed as the best built boat of all the boats I've looked at. So when I look at, well, I'll come back to that. I like that the vast majority of their badging is above the waterline. That's become a big deal to me as I've seen Falcon and Phoenix getting their badging scraped off, badging being the name of their boat. And I think Vexus is going to have the same problem. It's got good, big, apparently very well insulated ice chest from everybody I talked to. And I dinged the Puma because the front boxes, a couple of them had double latches, which I hate. I don't even like undoing one latch and relatching one latch, much less 2. So there's none of that double latches on any of the rod box lids here. The negatives on this boat from a fit and finish, It's a single live well, which again, most of these boats are, but I really love the idea of having 2 live wells. There's carpet in several of their bow boxes. So not in the rod box, but the other side boxes, it's carpeting. You guys know I don't like that. It's gonna get wet. Even if the box is perfectly sealed, you're gonna open it in the rain, it's gonna get wet. And it's harder to dry carpet than it is to dry finished fiberglass. Now, I asked about that from some of the Bass Cat folks, and the comment was it's because of the way their boxes are and how the boat's built. That's probably not going to change, but it's something I would like to see changed in that boat. I love those Vexus and a couple of other manufacturers with that finished fiberglass with the SeaDek flooring in it. So much easier to keep clean, so much easier to get dry. One of the things that does bother me about this boat is there are no SeaDek flooring options in this boat right now. And the reasoning is from them that they still don't think the SeaDek has, and actually they sent me a picture that I'm not going to share, but of another manufacturer's boat. Actually, that may not have come from Bass Cat, but somebody sent me a picture of some pretty scratched up SeaDek, and they said there are some different manufacturing techniques coming, and as they see those and as they see those wear, they may install those in their boat. They're not opposed to it. They actually like the idea of it. And I can appreciate that. They want to build their boats for people to own for a really long time. And I get that. My preference would be for there to be some SeaDek options. I really like it in the floor. And then the other knock on the boat is, you guys know I don't like dash pads. And this boat's got a big old dash pad up there. It just, they seem like things, no, they don't seem like. My history with Ranger dash pads are they break and they're expensive. So the reason I put an asterisk up there next to the score, I scored it a 16, which is a good, not excellent. And I scored it that way because of the carpet in the boxes and no SeaDek flooring. Or I would have scored that boat a 17 or maybe even an 18, excellent. And really, those might have should have gone over into the amenities area, but I had put those in the fit and finish for the other boats, so I stayed true to my scoring. So the boat scores a 16 here. If either one of those two things got changed, this boat would score 17, or if they both got changed, this boat would score 18. But scoring, I'm trying to stay true to my scoring I've done on I am going to stay true to the scoring I've done on the rest of these boats. So 16 on fit and finish. Performance. So only one boat has scored higher on performance, and it was the Bullet, and the Bullet scored lower on some other stuff. So this boat has great lift. It seemed to be a very dry ride. Phil tried to get me wet out there. We went out in some pretty nasty stuff, quartering and trailing seas, and I didn't get wet. And I had my rain suit on because I thought I was going to. So this is not a big boat. It's compared to what I've looked at, it's 20 feet and I think 8 inches, but it's a big water boat. He had great nose control. I don't know if you hear me say it in the video of part 2. There's a lot of noise because I'm talking to him. But I looked over and he's going down seas and he doesn't even have his jack plate all the way down. And I'm like, you don't even have your jack plate all the way down. So I was impressed with that. When you're trying to make these boats go super fast, you're gonna turn those bigger wheels, you're gonna turn those bigger props on them. He's only turning a 24 on here, and I would say at a 5 to 6 second hole shot, it's an okay hole shot. It's not a great hole shot, but the boat will fly, and you're only going to get that speed out of the boat turning those bigger props. So I said okay hole shot as propped. You could put a 23. Hey Hollis, you could put a 23 on this boat, and it would jump out of the hole, but you're not going to run as fast. It lands soft. You've heard me talk about that before. It doesn't bang and shudder, which is one of the things I hate, especially in quartering seas. You saw me actually you didn't see me. You heard me in video 2 say I want to drive the boat, and I put the camera up because I wanted to focus on driving the boat. And it is surprisingly easy to drive at speed. I wasn't fighting it, and I was hooking them in this boat, which I'll talk about. The boat planed really well and held the nose steady in the low 20s, which I knew I did that after we went out in the rough water and drove this boat. I knew it was going to do that. because I could see how easy it was for Phil in a trailing sea to control the nose of that boat. This boat, again, tournament loaded. This boat will hold 64-ish gallons of fuel, which is by far the biggest fuel tank we've looked at. And he had something around 50 gallons of fuel in this boat. The live wells were completely full, and we had well over 400 pounds of dudes in the boat. And into the wind, this boat ran 73.5, and then I drove it back downwind, and I touched 75.1, and I think it had a little bit more leg in it because I ran out of space. I ran from the back of Caney to the front of Caney, and then, of course, we had that big wind crossing us. But this is an absolute legitimate 73.5 to 75.5 mile an hour tournament loaded boat. And the only other boat that I've seen that would do that for sure is the Bullet. The Ballistic was right there in that range. I would be real interested to see those two boats line up with exact same loads. I think it would be a dead heat between those two boats. So it's one of only 2 or 3. And again, I still feel like that Bullet's more of a specialty boat. It's narrow. It's not, the front end's not lined up. That's why it didn't score well other than performance. It scored 19 on performance. I'm really impressed with this boat from a performance standpoint. So I tried to come up with the negatives on it. It does have a little side to side at 74 miles an hour, but all you really got in the water is prop and pad. So yeah, that's going to happen. So I didn't ding it for that. I was just trying to put something in that other column, and then I put in the other column too. Bass Cat's guys say this is a slow boat. Sorry about that, guys. I went a little dry on you. I mean, Bass Cat guys, when I ask them about this boat, they go, well, it's slow. And I'm like, dude, I don't need to go 80. I'm coming out of a Ranger. So from a performance standpoint, I don't really have any knocks on the boat. So I scored it excellent. I scored it an 18. I was really, really impressed with the performance out of this boat. And as I said before, I mean, I scored the Bullet in a 19, and my comment was it blew my socks off. So this is as good as anybody has scored other than that boat, which was, you know, in fairness, it was a 300 racing. It was a high 80 mile an hour boat. So. Okay, amenities. So kind of the same stuff we talked about. And I've got one thing in here I didn't clarify, guys, and I apologize. But it's got the driver's cleat right there where you can tie off next to the dock. I know for sure a 12-inch graph will mount in the dash. It looked to me like something bigger would, but I just honestly forgot to follow up to check on that. But it'll certainly hold a 12-inch. It's got that cool net storage in the side over there. It's got the good rod straps, and you heard Phil say you can actually get anything you want, but I would get those that pull out of the wall. That's my favorite. It's got 2 fuel tanks, which I love. 32 gallons apiece, which are huge. And I noticed on their website they said that could be plus or minus 5% because of something. I can't remember what they said, but they list them on the website really as 60-gallon capacity, but it's 2 32-gallon fuel tanks. One of the things I've talked about in just about everybody else's review is, sorry about that, I had to get rid of an assistant. So I've talked about this in a bunch of other videos where those battery straps in most of those boats are just those cheap nylon straps. And this one is done really well. It's got those screw-in mounts, if you will, which I saw, by the way, you can buy them on the Bass Cat website. And then they've also pulled those batteries to the center of the boat, so they've got them away from the edges of the boat, and there's 2 on either side, as close pretty much as you can get them, and still have access to your sump. So as I look at that, and I've seen this on a lot of boats, right? I mean, I said stuff about the Phoenix boat. The boat appears to be designed by somebody who actually fishes and or has been around boats for a really long time, because that's the way you'd want it, right? It's like the live well. You want that weight in the middle of the boat, but you still want access, and you want, I mean, it just makes sense to me how they've designed this, and I love that those batteries are strapped down in there, because if you bounce a battery around, you greatly reduce the battery life. And I'm not talking about you're going to bounce them around in a boat, but where they're coming off the floor and banging on that floor, you're going to reduce your battery life. So Love that. I just talked about the sump access. I like the dash visibility. When you're sitting in that dash, that weird Bass Cat steering wheel is flattened off the top, so it's easier to see your graphs. And then they've got big analog gauges down the sides that are really easy to see. So I like that a lot. There's multiple prop and tool storage options. So you can put them under the seat. Again, because of the way they set up their gas tanks, there's space under the seats. You can put props or tools under the seat, or as you saw in Phil's case, on either side in the back of the boat, there's additional storage space back there as well. So I like that a lot. Again, they kind of originally set the bar on that split deck, removable deck option. I like that a lot. I like it better than anything else I've seen, with the exception maybe of the Falcon and the Skeeter, where you can kind of set up your own culling station back there. Remember, you can open the boxes and you've kind of created a little spot right there where those fish can't get out. But this is still really good. Also on his boat, now I don't know if it's standard or not, but you remember I love that, it's called a battery tender. It's that little thing where you can quick disconnect your trolling motor. It's external, so you can check your trolling motor, make sure it's connected really quick if you're having trolling motor issues. I just thought it was in the Caymas, and this is the only, maybe it's been in one other boat, but it's not in very many boats, so I love that option. I love that little spot in the back. The first boat we talked about was the Bass Cat, and it's got the same thing. It's got a traction pad in the very back of the boat where you can stand and hold the power pole and lean out over the back of the boat and do whatever you might need to do back there. The internal lights inside the gunnel each have individual on-off switches. I love that. So I don't have to go back and turn on every light in the boat and walk back to the dash and turn off every light in the boat. It's got the same ventilated or a similar ventilated storage system to my Ranger. If you don't have that, basically you punch a button and a fan circulates air through all your boxes to help dry your stuff out, which is pretty dang cool. Negatives from the amenity standpoint. So that oh crap handle is actually that rail outside the boat for the co-angler. There's a good one on the right side, and it's a big one. It's on that center box. I don't think it's a weird angle to hold on to from a co-angler standpoint, but that's a weird place to me for the co-angler to hang on. Now, it's big and it's easy to hold on to, but it just seems weird to actually be holding kind of outside of the gunnel of the boat if you're in really rough water. I would like to see it more up under them or somewhere down there with that left hand. I still am okay with those pull straps, the ones that retract into the wall. If they'll make the things big enough to put your hands in, I don't know why somebody doesn't just do those double on either side for the co-angler to hold on to, but that was a little bit weird to me. The seats don't adjust up and back. I've talked about that. It's probably not that big a deal, and I've really not dinged boats up on it too much because there's only a couple of them that do that, but they don't. There's really nothing in this boat new or revolutionary, and there's only been a boat or two that we've seen much kind of new revolutionary stuff out of. The fast water pickup in the Caymas, the whole live well system in the Vexus, kind of how Vexus has done some of their, well, and that's not fair. They have moved those rod boxes into different angles so that your rods can lay on the deck and you can open your boxes, but nothing really somebody else isn't doing. One of the things that does bother me is there's no USB charger in a box. They're on the dash, and if you buy the radio option, there's one under the dash where you can also put your phone in that little ram mount that they do. I would love to see one in that center box so I can put my phone in there and keep my phone dry, and I'm sure a guy can rig that, but it just seems like everybody else is going to that. It seems like that's something that you should have. It really is a single rod box option in that center box, and there's no there's no remote drain plug option. I don't believe in this boat. I'll get to this in a minute, but I've said this about other boats. I don't grade them poorly for this, but the Bass Cat webpage doesn't show you all the options. You can't go in there and say, can I get a hand beast? Can I get this? Can I get that? The options just aren't real robust. Although I suspect there's a ton of options on the boat, I had to ask guys about these because there's no place on the Bass Cat website to talk about that, as opposed to several other manufacturers that have great, I mean, Rangers is very, very good. You can select a gazillion options in there, and it seems like that's something that would be pretty simple, even just to put a PDF in there of, you know, on the page of in the Lynx, in the Era, and whatever else. Here's all the options you can get in the boat. I can't find that anywhere on the website. I wound up quite a bit on the Bass Cat owners forum trying to find this stuff out, or reaching out to Phil or the other guys that I know that run Bass Cats. Now, and by the way, back to the remote drain plug option. Again, I thought more and more about this. So Chris, the Blazer rep, they have that option in the Blazer. And obviously a rep can get whatever he wants on his boat, right? It's basically, I'm assuming it's a memo to him. He doesn't pay for it. He sells it at the end of the year. He doesn't get one. And he said, I don't get one because that's one more thing to break. Kind of like the the closable, remotely closable latch for your live wells that Phoenix doesn't do. I kind of get that. And so the more I've thought about that, I mean, I would be so frustrated if that cable broke in mine and I had to drag my boat back to the dealer for a stupid cable break-in, and they do break. So I may not order that on my next boat. I may, I don't know, but they don't offer it. So from a amenity standpoint, I scored them a 16 good. Again, the one big one here to me is the USB charger. And again, I think that crap handle for the co-angler could be in a better spot. Otherwise, this is pretty much in line with what we saw with most other manufacturers scoring at a 16. Trailers and other stuff. So it's got a good trailer step on it. It's got the good Fulton winch and jack. It's got a swing away tongue. That's kind of price of admission in these boats. It's got the vault hubs. Now, I hope this is correct. So you're going to see in the next video, Billy Sarton, who owns Sarton Marine, talked to me on camera about the Falcon. And they have the vault hubs as well. Now, I knew from talking to somebody, and again, it may have been the Blazer rep if I remember now, but somebody was telling me about the vault hubs and how they have basically no maintenance for a very long period of time, as I recall, 5 years. But Billy said basically what it is it's a grease hub under a slight amount of pressure that once it heats up becomes a fluid hub, and then once it cools off becomes a grease hub again. That's what I understand the vault hubs to be, but what I do know is most boat manufacturers are going to the vaulted hubs, so there you go. Again, kind of like their carpet and their glass, they make a really good looking boat trailer. It's fiberglass fenders, and one of the things I like about it, one of the knocks on my Ranger fender is there's a little tiny hole in the fender to put your foot in to step up, or you can step up on the front or the back, again, in little small spaces to get into your boat. They actually have a recess on top of the wheels that you could step up on. It's way easier to step in and out of this boat. It's much more like a metal fender boat in the ease to get into the boat or reach over in the boat to get something than what my boat is. So I was actually impressed with the trailer and how they've set up the fenders. And it's good looking because it's a fiberglass trailer as well. Great dealer access for me and for most of us, right? I mean, there's Dallas, you get Rockwall Marine right here. You got Ross in Lufkin. You got, I mean, there's dealerships kind of all over the place across most of the country. So great dealer access, scores well for me. It's got LED backup lights. They call it a torque flex. That's really the word on their website. Axles, I believe those are torsion axles. I'm about 90% sure that's correct. The only real negatives on the trailer and other stuff was no parking brake on the boat trailer. You know, I really like that on mine. And as I've already mentioned, it would be really nice, and I don't take points off of them for this, but it'd be really nice to have a more robust sort of shopping experience on the website. And I get it, right? Boat manufacturers don't want you shopping on their website. They want you going to a dealership. But I like going on there and playing and looking. Now, they do have a fun thing where you can change the colors on the boat and do all that stuff, which not all manufacturers do. But it seems a little skinny on the options. Now, I'm going to check my score here. 32. Okay. I had to add that back up. I scored the Lynx 83. That's the best score by 2 points. I'm impressed, and I actually am very conscious when I do this on each one of these to only look at how I've scored other boats and why I've scored them good or bad. And I really did not realize that boat was going to score that well, but it does, and I'm impressed with the boat. I'll tell you, it's at this point it's definitely a finalist in this for me. I feel really confident saying that after spending some time in the boat and with Phil talking about the boat. And I've talked about this with a couple of other guys as well. I got attacked when I scored the. Now, granted, nobody knew that 79 was a pretty good score when I scored the hybrid of 79, but I got attacked by Bass Cat guys. And there is something to be said for that kind of loyalty, brand loyalty from your anglers. And you don't get that in a year. You get that over a long period of time of building, products that guys really love. So I'm impressed. 83. Contingency program. It's the same score I gave it before. The only thing I'm going to note here is they've not updated their contingency program for this year. So I'm assuming it's the same thing. On the current website, it says owner of an original 2018 or newer. You see here, I put 2019 because it says on there 2020. I think this is called Quest. I think that's right. But their program, it's the 2020 and it's an 18 or newer boat. So I'm pretty sure for 2021, it'll be a 19 or newer boat. And 2 years from date of purchase. So it has to be a relatively new boat. $7,500 in a lot of team circuits. And something I missed the first time I went through this, that includes a BFL. So that is as good a payout, I think, as anybody. I think that's as good as the Phoenix payout. And the first time I read through this, I thought BFLs fell down there on the bottom. Matter of fact, I still left it down there. I'll correct that by the time you guys see this slide. But that's an excellent payout. That's I think I might have scored the Phoenix in 18, and I think I didn't. I think I scored it to 17 as well. So that's as good as I've scored anybody. So that's my take on the Lynx. It's a pretty cool boat. I'm impressed. It's weird to look at the deck. You're going to have to get used to that. There's a couple things I'd change, but that's a really solid, big, fast boat. So I've got Falcon 21TE/F215 review coming next week. And I talked to Mike, the ballistics here. He's getting it tricked right. We're going to do the ballistic real soon. And then I'll be at the Bass Champs at Travis. I'm going to go fish Travis. I've never been on that lake. I'm going to literally show up that morning and go fishing. We'll film that. You guys will either see us bombing or doing something and figuring it out as we go. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys are enjoying this. Thanks for all the shares. Thanks for all the input. And on all these boats, and if there's a boat I haven't done and you want me to do, I know the Nitro and the Allison are left for sure. If there's something else I'm not thinking of, let me know. Just in glass boats. We'll get to metal boats. Stick with me. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see y'all really soon.